Welcome back to Super Sunday Matchday. A new interview with Pep Guardiola is coming up for you at 11 o'clock. But first, Ruben Amorim, who will take charge of his first Premier League home game as the Manchester United head coach this afternoon as Everton travel to Old Trafford. So, Gary, you went to Portugal, didn't you? And you met with Amorim before he took over at United. What struck you most? Yes, you did. It was quite famous in the end, wasn't it, that meeting? What struck you most about him?
Sense of humour.
Yes.
I mean, we're clearly a top coach. I mean, he went to Sporting, when they were really having a bad time and turned them around and how. But the players love him and the fans love him and the media love him. It's a bit like Slot in a way.
You didn't. There's a little kind of nugget that you didn't really tell us about. Where you went to the press conference and he came in and he kind of acknowledged, just to tell us about what he did to acknowledge you.
Well, there are lots of things. We're lucky enough to be working in this industry. We're privileged. There are a lot of things, obviously, that go on in terms of relationships with clubs, relationships with managers, relationships with press officers that you can't broadcast because that's the grease the wheels. They make the world go around. So initially, when I spoke to Ruben, he gave an answer in English, and he said at the end of the 4 answers in English, actually, ahead of a League Cup game, a Portuguese League Cup game, the day after it was announced that he was going to be the Manchester United manager, not officially, but everyone knew that he was, that he didn't know whether he was going to be in Lisbon come the weekend, and that made headlines, and United weren't happy, apparently, and Sporting got a bit of a flea in the ear, and so the press officer was told off, and so therefore they decided they weren't going to answer in press conferences in English anymore. That's fine. But I was told this by the press officer and told him, well, I'm going to try. And he says, yeah, try, because it gets across the message that he's not. So it was all pre-arranged. But he was sitting in the audience while the player that was put up was a Champions League news conference, so the player normally speaks first, and the manager walks in afterwards. But Ruben Amorim was sitting literally here next to us, listening to the player talking about the fact, all the questions, of course, were about the fact that he was going to leave. And at one point, the player said, well, we just need to prove that we don't need him anymore. And he was, you're not playing.
Theatrical.
And then after the incident about the question, not speaking in English, which he took very well, smiling throughout, he walked out. And we showed this on Sky Sports News. I don't think it was shown online. He walked back in, pointed at me, gave me a thumbs up, and agreed to answer an English question the day after. So he got it. He understands that the media... I don't think he's going to wilt under the pressure at all. Now, Eric Ten Hag, different. Wasn't at all really having that kind of getting it, having a sense of humour, joining in with the media. That's fine, that's his personality. But Ruben Amorim, I think, at a club like Manchester United, and he's shown it since as well, hasn't he, with his news conferences?
Yes.
What did he say after his first game at Old Trafford, not his first Premier League game, in the Europa League? I feel like I'm one of them. I feel like I'm one of us, use the word us. He knows exactly what to say, and he gets it for the fans and for the media.
I think it's really important. Because we've been speaking for many weeks on this show about the importance of being able to handle that side of things as well as the job. Now, there might be some people who say, well, the job is results. It is. It absolutely is, because it is a results business. But we are in a digital media era, a social media era. We are in an era of clubs wanting to send their message direct to fans. We are in an era of everybody being a publisher. And so there has to be the understanding of the way the media works. There are different things that different people take from any one press conferences. The days of the views of the wider public being shaped by a small number of people, it's being diluted quite considerably by social media. So you have to be able to handle that side of things. And Amorim already appears a natural at being able to do that.
I have to say, at the end of my visit to Lisbon, I contacted the press officer, nice guy, said, thanks very much for your help. And he replied, and I'm not giving anything away because it's good stuff. He says, no problem, you're going to love Ruben in England. He's a great guy. And it's proving.
Well, he certainly has, the media on side at the moment because, like you say, he's come in and he's given us what we want, an entertaining press conference. Somebody, obviously, who has similar, and you know very well, privileged to know him extremely well, is Jose Mourinho. Do you think there's some similarities in between Jose and Ruben Amorim?
Oh, master and apprentice in a way, because he went to the Lisbon University course that was set up by a friend of Jose Mourinho's. The two of them were at university together. the course has been set up by the man who's still Jose's friend, using input from Jose Mourinho, and obviously he went and did like a short-term apprenticeship at Old Trafford when Jose Mourinho was there, did Amorim.
Right.
So the two are very close.
Yes.
He can see talent early on, can Jose Mourinho. And I think they're very similar in this way. What you see publicly with Jose Mourinho, sometimes it's great, sometimes not so great. In private, he's such a nice, warm guy. Ruben Amorim, so far in public, he's come across really well. Let's see what happens when the pressure's on. He's handled the pressure well at Sporting, but again, in private, he's a really nice guy. And I think he's admires Jose Mourinho, and I know from speaking to Jose Mourinho that Jose Mourinho thinks he's a really, really good, top young coach who could have got a job at any club in the world and made a success of it.
It's interesting, isn't it, how the fans have taken to him quite quickly, it would seem, if you know, from just talking to the fans outside Old Trafford over the last week. He's been quite direct as well about saying which players need to do better. Which players are going to benefit the most, do you think, from Amorim in charge?
I still think Marcus Rashford is a fantastic player, and I think that he could benefit from Amorim's man management. I think he's very different to Ten Hag in that Ten Hag is very tactically focused, whereas I think as far as Amorim is concerned, he's much more of a man manager, and you can see that with the improvement of the players at Sporting. I think Rashford will be a beneficiary of that. We just saw Bruno Fernandes. I think we'll see the footballing brilliance rather than the petulant side of Fernandes. I also think Mason Mount will be a beneficiary.
Okay.
I know from covering Chelsea how well thought of he was by a succession of managers at Chelsea. He's been very, very unlucky with injuries. But I think under Amorim, and he took a moment, didn't he, after the game the other day, to really talk about how much he admires Mount. I think he could be one of the biggest beneficiaries from the arrival of, along with Højlund as well.
Okay.
Really like Højlund too as a player.
Yeah, just seeing them arriving, of course, ahead of this game at Old Trafford today against Everton. What are the papers saying against this about
Just
this
the
game?
one for this one. It's Mazraoui, the summer signing from Bayern Munich, described by Amorim as the future. And he says that although it will be an initial shock to the system for the players, look at the subdeck there, just underneath the headline, they'll adapt because he makes good players even better. And Mazraoui, having played under a succession of managers with a lot of good players who have had to adapt to different formations and different ways of doing things at Bayern, he thinks that United will be the better for the arrival of Amorim. Really good piece there in the Sun.